This time I will like to call the Tuesday, September 6th, 2022 meeting of the Jackson County Board of Supervisors to order. Larry McDevitt, Mike Steinus, and myself are the county supervisors, and we have Lisa Smith today from the auditor's office, the county auditor, and Wangoki is back from her wanderings and is back on duty today. And our first item on the agenda today is Todd Kinney, Jackson County engineer.
Did you guys sign that?
Yeah, we did.
So we can cross out.
You're officially tagged.
Okay.
You're it.
I'm in. All right. Okay, so this was carried over from last week. I'm still getting in tune to how you guys process your business, but to be a resignation from an employee. Just need a motion to approve the resignation, I guess. That's how you guys do that.
So move.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the resignation of Brad Bowman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
What was he a motor grader?
Truck driver. Okay. So that's being posted internally. I think we're on to the third posting now. So there's quite a bit of shuffling going on. So
So is it stand right now, is the opening in Springfield?
I think so, but from what I gathered, the discussion is it's the same thing. It's always like a guess of where it's gonna end up, but I think there's a couple moves yet on the chessboard to see where the opening will be, but I did talk to Becky about, we reduced it down to 5 days internally. When we go out to post to the public, it has to be for 10 days, but internally, we just compress that to 5 days. And then make sure, like if somebody's on a week's vacation, we need to make sure they get it, either, email it or text it to them so they have it. But, because it was 10 days, that's 2 weeks. If you might be 3 or 4 months before you find out where you're gonna be, and the whole time you're without one person, so.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And we're short one already, and
Yeah, so the next one is right of way permit, and this is to install a manure pipe. This is a private landowner, not like a franchise utility request. So typically, from what I understand, and we do this, waive the $100 permit fee. I talked to Roger this morning. The only concern I have is that when they close the road, and he's gonna check with Bear, would be the lead man, is they just need to have signage up. So they have to have their own certificate of insurance, all that stuff, but a lot of times the franchise utility, they're aware of road closure and signage and all that, where like a local property owner might not be, but we just want to verify they have the proper signage in place, so when they close the road.
so this gentleman called and I said, you'd have to call you. But is it my understanding that there's a pipe there now? and he's replacing it?
Mhm.
So would it not be better to directional bore or pull a pipe through there?
So I think, from what I understand, the newer pipe they're putting in now is bigger.
Yeah.
So you couldn't,
Through that.
slip line or do whatever, but directional boring would be better for the road, but if it's gravel, I mean, it's significantly more for them to directionally bore it than open cut it.
How big a pipe is it?
8-inch.
8-inch.
So, I mean, you could require them directional bore, but it's probably gonna be, geez, I don't even know. 4 or 5 times the cost, probably.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
It's significantly more to directional bore it, yes.
I was just thinking that there's a pipe already there, so I mean, I know when they bore through, they pull back a larger, a reamer or whatever it is, how they do that, but that's they can pretty easily pull a larger pipe through there. But
Yeah, the plan here is to open cut it.
I mean, so is there a stipulation in it, Todd, that would say, in 6 months when it settles, you're gonna put some more filled in, or we
So-
just do that?
We would just do that. So that was my other question, is how they're gonna backfill a pipe, but from my understanding, they just backfill with whatever they dig up, and then when it settles, we'll have to fix it.
Well, if they do it in 6-inch lifts like they're supposed to with the compactor, it does work.
I'm gonna venture to guess they won't have a compactor out on the job.
Well, I'm guessing the operator here is a pretty good operator, and I would guess he would compact it with his.
It probably uses bucket, but regardless, when you open cut
Yeah.
a native trench, it's gonna settle,
Settle.
it's gonna settle, and it's not a big, I mean, we can handle fixing it, it's not like it's a huge issue.
Did make the motion to
Motion.
approve.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the right-of-way permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
Okay, so the next thing is the 308th Street rumble stop panels. We got 2 quotes from contractors that do that kind of work. The standard now is a 2-panel installation. It used to be 3. I don't know if you have some of those around the county. They're probably 3, but these would be 2. The first one goes 200 foot ahead of the stop ahead sign. And then the next one goes 75% of the distance between the stop sign and the stop ahead sign. So like 75% and then 200 feet ahead of the stop ahead sign. They're not typically used in a 55 mile an hour or less than a 55 mile an hour speed limit area or where it's a lot of residential housing. But it's my understanding that this came as a request. It's not like you can't do it, it's just typically not done. But based on what I've been hearing about the accident history here, audible and tangible driver feedback would be beneficial at this intersection. So you can put up a lighted stop sign LED like we have, or light the intersection. But it sounds like maybe people need to be physically warned about the intersection through rumble panels. So and if it sounds like the person's requesting it lives around there, because the only bad thing would be is people live around there would complain about the noise. So it makes noise obviously when you cross it.
Sure it does. I mean, I've just heard several people ask me about it. It's not that they live there, no. I mean, are we setting a precedence then if we're doing it under a 35, 55 mile an hour? So that somebody else comes in requests, they said, well, you did it there, why don't you do it here?
Well, I would say in this case, you have some, accident history to warrant it. I would say if you got another request to do it at an intersection that's posted speed below 55, you'd probably want to look at the same accident history. And see if there's-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you gonna disclose them quotes or what's?
Yeah, so there's 2 quotes, one from Denko, one from Iowa Plains Signing. I mean, for something like this, typically I wouldn't get the board's approval. I would just authorize it and do it. The one is $2,000, the other one's $5,800. So I mean, obviously I recommend we, and Denko's the low quote. They do a lot of work all over the
Mhm.
state, so I have
What
no
was that
issue.
quote for?
What's
What
that?
was the price of the quote for Denko?
2,000.
That's
And
reasonable enough.
It's a fairly inexpensive safety treatment, really. It's just that as long as the surrounding residences are okay with the noise and the nuisance part of it.
There's really nothing that close there right now. That I don't think would create an issue for the noise part of it.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the intersections, obviously, that's on our list of putting destination lighting up too. So it's already got an LED stop sign. We'd be putting these in and then potentially putting up an intersection light. I don't know what else you could really do to make it any safer.
I know we had discussed this briefly before, but again, contributions toward that, not really applicable, right? Or
Contributions towards what?
towards, they would like to contribute to the cost of this thing,
Of what?
Of putting the rumble strips.
No,
in.
I would say that's unnecessary.
Yeah,
so what's the intersection at 308th Street and,
395th,
That, what he said.
okay,
for sure.
395th Avenue? Or Street?
Yeah. Avenue.
Avenue, 300, well, this says 396th Avenue, but it's probably, I think it is 395th. The quote,
Okay, I just want to make sure that we've got everything.
Yeah.
So we've.
So this is something you can just do. The board doesn't have to approve it. Okay.
I guess you can approve it if you want by motion. It's more just, so you guys are aware this is gonna be happening. I mean, you wanna approve the installation of it and the cost, approving the quote, you wouldn't necessarily have to do. But you should be approving the installation at this
Okay.
location.
That's fine.
I would make a motion to approve that.
A motion and a second to approve the rumble strip installation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is 395.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then just a couple updates, 405th Avenue, bridge, the road's gonna get closed tomorrow.
Looking at you, Mary.
475th Avenue,
470.
yeah. Road will get closed tomorrow, then they'll
You
start
said
tearing out the bridge.
405.
What?
Did you say
475,
475? You did say
You
405.
said
said
405th.
475th. And they're gonna start tearing out the bridge on Thursday. And then the patching job, they think maybe they'd be done by the end of the week, but talking to Mike, probably be the next week they'll finish. So that.
E17 you're talking or where?
Yeah, D's, yeah,
They're on Belly Cascade, they're finished with that pretty much, I heard
Yeah.
today.
yeah,
But E17 they're working on now, is that
I
correct?
think so, yeah.
Okay, I didn't come across there.
But, yeah, but the potential is they would finish this week, but it sounds like it'd be next week, so.
What's the bridge doing up here?
Yeah, South Main.
They're doing the HMA tear out on the north side. They gotta put in a modified rock subbase, so they gotta do a little bit of coring out, put in rock. Most of the approach paving is on the north side. There's some on the south, but not as much because they're actually got to build up to the road, so. They got, I think they got, what was it? 67% of the days used. And I think they got like 30 some days left, so they got plenty of days. They'll finish before the days, so. It should go along pretty quick now. They still gotta switch traffic back over and pour the barrier rail yet, so that'll be some more traffic disruption or changeover, but, once the approach paving's done, it should go pretty quick. So,
We're talking barrier between the walk path and the roadway. is that
yeah,
correct?
bike path on the roadway. That's all I have.
How's new employee working out?
So we're talking about, couple things. So I got a bridge replacement list that we're using. It's got, gosh, what was it, about 50 bridges on it right now, I think, or thereabouts. So it's a list we're gonna use to select projects to add into the 5-year program. So it's got the posting of the bridge, the ADT sufficiency rating. We're gonna add a condition rating for the sub and superstructure. So looking at all these factors, we'll start picking bridges we want to add. So if we're going to add, say, 3 or 4 day labor bridges we want to do additionally each year, we'll use this list to pick from using the metrics to say, hey, this is the bridge we want to do because it's got a lower posting, it's got lower condition ratings. And then also, so once we select, say, 3 or 4 bridges we want to add, what my plan is, I'll go out in the field and look, say it's got a condition rating of 4 on the substructure. If it's a situation where we can fix 1 or 2 pile, that's what's causing the posting, that's what's causing the low condition rating, and we can do a maintenance job and fix those, then we'll do that, and then we'll take that bridge off the list. So I want to make sure we can do if we can do maintenance to get it off the list, we'll do that first. If we can't, then it'll be replaced. So my plan is to use this list as our our portal, if you will, to grab projects through that to bring them on the 5-year program. Then we're gonna do the same thing with, well, there is already one for roadways. That's just what I call my 10-year road replacement schedule. So that's based on PCI, ADT, and basically a big one is just agent replacement. Like that's typically age is the bigger factor, but so we're working on that. Stacy's gonna update it to take off the projects we've already have done and add projects that are currently in the program, and then I'm gonna have Jaden go through and start putting in or looking at the condition rating, and then we'll sit down and start looking at how we pick projects to add, so. And then everything else we got going on too.
How many bridges we got posted now?
Like right around 30, I believe. So it's always because we're replacing bridges that weren't posted, but we add bridges, like what was it? 3 weeks ago, we added bridges or something, so it's a moving target.
Yeah.
But
That's good, though. It used to be in the 50s.
yeah, my goal would be, barring like river bridges, those are a little bit different that are posted, but Be nice to have every bridge that's posted on the 5-year program. So that would be the goal, is like get every bridge that's posted on the 5-year program, so you really kind of start getting my, I guess, caught up. I mean, big river bridges that are gonna be, you know, $1, $2 million, $3 million, and you know, you can't, those have to be programmed over a much longer time. But
Sure.
the shorter span one, we should be able to get.
So, and them rivers, like major tributaries, like rivers, do they get extra funding, federal funding? We should.
So,
You know, we can't say we have the largest Macoga River, we got 4 or 5 bridges over Macoga River. How can you keep up with that expense? It's almost.
so what happens is because you have that much square footage of deck, you get your percentage of the pie you get is a little bit more because you have more square footage area, and that's one of the factors that's used. So like the BIP money, there's each year in the IIJA, the state of Iowa is gonna be making a BIP application, so that would be the potential, but it's competitive, so you have to go compete against, you know, other states, other entities
sure you
across the
do.
country, so.
But I mean, you have, you know, I don't know, what you go by square footage, if you want to go, say, the Missouri River, Macoga River, you know, of course, the Mississippi is mostly, I would say, all federal. But, you know, you have large tributaries of water like that, that span, you would think there would be a formula to say, yeah, we can help fund some of that, because it's just a small county like that. And I mean, we're at the mouth of the Macoga because it gets wider and wider as it comes down, you know, it's.
Yeah, I don't know, like I said, I know like in Clinton County, we have Wapsie River, which is
Yeah,
in our county, it's really
Yeah.
big. And those crossings, you know, luckily there's none that are posted, but if we had to replace one of those, that would probably use up you know, 5 or 6 years of my
Yeah.
money.
That's what I'm saying.
Without a
And I've
doubt.
mentioned this to legislators before too, you know, but I guess, I don't know how far it goes, but.
Yeah, well, you'd have the potential to apply for money and there's a county fund you can apply for too, but there's a formula there, but it's like your item mileage, detour route, like the length of detour, condition of the bridge, ADT, there's a lot of factors I look at. But I don't, and don't quote me on this, but I don't think one of the factors they look at is how many other bridges you have in your county. They look at that bridge particularly.
They should look at the size of these, the
Yeah.
rivers, you know, it don't seem like it's apples to apples when I go west of Dyersville and it's flat, you know, and they're using a culvert or a tube or whatever.
Mhm.
Instead of a 300 long bridge,
Yeah.
you know. I'm not picking
What's
on
the
anybody out there with
The
it.
Canton Bridge, that's not even on a list for anything.
I don't think so.
Okay, I just saw in the paper, 2 semis met. Was it pretty big?
They just touch mirrors, that's because they put the mirrors out there far enough.
I would have waited for. one
If they didn't
thing.
touch on that old 52 bridge going across down by Subiza, they didn't touch anywhere.
Yeah,
Amen.
that was scary.
And a motorcycle just goes like this on that.
And the railing's about this high.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, the single span bridges, you know, those are ones that we can aggressively,
Mhm.
in my mind, get caught up on, but the major river crossings are, I mean, it's gonna take a while, definitely.
A lot of,
Yeah, and you know
a
that
lot
one,
longer time and a lot more money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know, and that one down there, the Preston Highway, ain't far away from that, you know,
no,
that's an old bridge.
That's really long,
Yes.
isn't it?
yeah,
400 or 500 foot, something like that.
it's a long one, that's for sure.
It is, yeah.
Okay, sir,
That's it, thank you.
thank you.
Next time.
Mhm.
I see no visitors or citizens wishing to address the board, so Marty, you can come on up.
Morning.
Morning.
I thought today was Monday.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is Monday, we just.
I got to where I was going, I was sitting there listening to KMAQ and all of a sudden they said something, I go, oh. So, I'm back.
Okay.
You missed the day?
Huh?
You missed the whole day?
You know, time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But anyway, I'm here. Things I've been working on, down at the senior citizen building, the gutter. I got it up and I think it'll work. It's just, I think over the year, well, first it was about this full of dirt and mud. So I cleaned all that out. there's a strap that comes over, bends over, and then there's a pop rivet on a bracket that holds it up. Well, them pop rivets were, not all of them, but most of them were out. And then there's a screw in the back of it. So I fixed all them. Hopefully I got it up. And then while I was up there, of course, you look over at the neighboring building and you see it's like this. So I'm working on that now too, because it's the same in the back. The front, I think I did a couple years ago, so I think it's okay. Let's see, the bathroom vents. About a year ago, one of the RTA bus drivers, Gerald Miller, pointed out to me that he thought birds were going in the back of the van. I may have told you this, so I put a piece of that little square chicken wire up there to keep them out. So then we were up on working on the vents and noticed that there was some stuff in there. So I took the ceiling down, went up in above the ceiling, and there's, I don't know if it's 3 or 4, I think it's gonna be 4-inch, comes out of there, goes into a big one out. Well, that was packed full of,
Sticks.
yeah, exactly. That's why we never had to rake the lawn, because it was all up in there. It was plugged, good. So I took it down.
Vent from my water heater and built a nest in there too. And it started flashing the code and says, not been right, so.
Wow, I
And I
couldn't
had
believe
a
it.
cover on, I think it fell off or blew off or something, and I ended up putting the wire over it, stuff after I
Yeah,
pulled it off and used the shop vac to blow air through it to blow it out.
it's amazing what them birds could pack in that 4-inch too, because it's probably, I'm gonna say 10 to 15 foot long, 2 of them, and they both were packed full.
It's a lot of sticks.
Yeah, I did get the board replaced out here by the ramp. And we're missing some of the railing, so I'm gonna fix that after I get done with the senior haycap building gutter. It may not be quite as easy because there's a fence there, but I think I can get it. The recorder's office, the lock on the birth vital cage, she calls it, coming loose, so I fixed that. The treasurer's office is having some issues with the workstations for the 2 people in the driver's license part. They got a desk coming from somewhere. They want Bruce's desk moved to the south about 4 inches. So there's a electrical plug in the floor, so I got to cut out around that. And that's about it. Mike's been on vacation last couple days, or Friday and today. He'll be back tomorrow. The new janitor seems to be working out good as far as I know. So that's all I got. Anything from you?
Well, kind of.
Okay,
I went down again this week, end of last week to the Welcome Center. And I just we told Tom that they could take whatever, they could use either out at the at the interpretive center or over at the building on Main Street, his desk and whatever. But basically nothing had been taken. And so I don't know if we need to talk to him, but before we can list that place, it really needs to have the stuff removed and a
good
really
cleaning.
good cleaning, because and I'm just wondering, John keeps telling us that we're not going to be getting any materials for the jail for several months yet, or at least a couple months. I wonder if we could talk to him, see if we could store or bring the stuff from the Welcome Center there and either have a sale or anybody that wants anything, come and get it.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
Because I did talk to Bonnie, and she's gonna go down with me to see if there's any books or any of the. I think I was telling Luann, when I was down there, they had I think 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 cup and saucer sets upstairs, which some people collect them, So I went to look at them. And I picked up the one cup because all of the saucers were upside down. And so I thought, well, I picked the cup up and the saucer came with it. They were all glued
Overall.
and the saucer's upside down. And I thought, why in the world would they have glued them that way instead of gluing the cup with the saucer the way it's supposed to be? So, and somebody says, well, maybe you could melt that. And I said, or put it in your dishwasher and that'd melt the glue. And I says, well, I'm not gonna put it in my dishwasher. But anyway, but Tom's desk's still up there, the copying machine's up there, everything, the little TV, everything is still there. And the,
For sale and stuff.
I don't know how we'll go about it, if we need to hire somebody to go down and move the stuff out of there. But a lot of it is boxes and boxes and boxes of brochures that need to just probably just be disposed of, because I don't know.
Isn't it up to the tourism to get rid of them? I mean, that's their stuff.
I know it is, but we told Tom to go out and take what he wanted.
When does Tom plan on moving out, so to speak, and moving into conservation, did I understand? I mean, what's his time frame there? So, you know me, I'm always thinking about desks. So I'm like, if we have a desk, because, you know, we did look around last week for a desk, and I think we're gonna.
Well, there's a
need more
beautiful
desks.
desk upstairs down there.
Well, that's what I'm
it.
saying, is
Somebody
is
told me
Tom gonna
that.
take that, or?
That was one that, from Tom. What's his name in Preston that made, I mean,
Or
it's,
Tom McNeil?
yeah, it's a real expensive desk. I don't know who paid for it.
But you also said that the space out at the interpretive center, if they give him a space, is not gonna be very big. And that desk is big.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's the desk on the main floor, but that's an antique and it's old. But I asked Bonnie about the school desk chairs for kids, and she said, no, they have their school is all set up on the second floor, so they don't need any. But there's all kinds of that, and I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that needs to come out of there, and it needs to be cleaned out so that we can actually even show. it
Even the
if we get
space.
to that point.
Space over the steps when you go up and around and you come in, there's a storage space. That would, last time I was in there was packed full of stuff too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went through the whole thing. Downstairs, there's stuff.
Yeah,
Upstairs, there's stuff. And the little kitchenette thing is a disaster.
I guess I understand desks and things like that. I don't understand us moving, because I wouldn't know what to do with all of the brochures and such. I mean, I wouldn't, we really don't have space here to store it in the courthouse.
I
Well-
really don't wanna store it in that unheated building either.
Most of
wouldn't that
the,
go where Tom's at or not?
Probably
Well, if he's
isn't enough
going
room,
out
it
there,
sounds
I don't
like.
think there's room.
no one has been in there, I can tell you.
Well, I got the artwork down. It's
Yeah,
down there.
yes, we
I
know
did get
that.
that for
We
you.
saw it. But,
So what is your capability of moving some of the other stuff?
If you get us a trailer, we can move it. I mean, I have no trailer. Last time when we brought the stuff from the hospital, we rented a trailer from
mhm.
Mhm.
a gentleman, I can't think of his name right now. If you want to do that, we can pull it with our truck, the one I like, and bring it back, put it wherever you want.
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is talk to John to see when they might be utilizing that area
Okay,
down there. But if we could use it for your elbow. But if we could use that to store things and just try to get rid of it, or at least go through it and see what's worth saving and what isn't worth saving. But I'm sure though, I mean, the Welcome Center physically hasn't been open for a couple years.
Right.
So all of those brochures are outdated.
No doubt.
And I don't know what we would do with them.
Well, if you
I'm
guys
sure
get a
that
hold of
the shop-
John and we can put that stuff in there, we're more than willing to go get it and put it in there, whatever you want in there.
Okay,
Oh, I'll
well,
be
we're,
honest, I don't know that it's up to John whether we ask it. It's our building.
Right,
yes, but
you don't want.
we
to
don't
put
know
stuff-
when they're gonna start bringing
Well,
materials for
they ain't
the
gonna fill
jail.
that building with material. They
I
ain't
think
gonna-
there already is material. isn't
Yeah,
there?
there's
I
some
don't know
plumbing,
what's
there's some
there.
plumbing stuff in there, but
We got our lawnmower in there that we mow with down
they're
there.
not gonna fill that building up with stuff. I mean, if we take a corner or whatever, but we're not into storing that miscellaneous stuff, I don't wanna call it anything else, but if it's, I'm not interested in keeping any of it.
Well, it needs to be sorted before we start saving any of it.
Well, it's like those stackable chairs. They're beautiful. They're brown metal and they all have a kind of a creamy tan cushion on them. They're padded. They're
Well, I think
very
that's something
nice.
that's sellable, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you take it to the local auction house or something.
And that
that's-
table, the conference table that's up there
Well,
has
yeah.
the 8 matching chairs. They're very nice. So
Would the wood stove come out? Cause that'd probably be worth something too.
probably. And the
Somebody'd
crock,
love to have
Well,
it sitting in there.
and the
I
crock
guess,
water
Yeah,
fountain.
does
or
it go
water.
with it? Does it, what are they gonna use the building for? There's a fire, yeah, I don't know.
That's,
Is it, I mean,
Something you have
normally
to figure
anything
out.
that's attached stays.
Stays,
you
right.
know.
And there, it is hooked up to a chimney, so it's usable.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Pretty
thing.
sure, isn't it?
I think it's just dummified.
Oh.
I
then
don't
probably
think
would-
it was ever usable.
Okay.
I could be wrong, Larry. I've never, ever seen heat coming out of it anytime I was ever down there. Okay,
Wonder if there's a chimney coming out.
I think it's just gas from the furnace. I remember right. I could be wrong. All right,
Okay, well, I will talk to Bonnie. We'll go down and look and then maybe next week when we.
Do we talk to Tom too and say, hey, get your brochures out of there at least?
I think,
Really
I
don't-
actually think my suggestion, it would be to send them a letter and say, please have all of your stuff out by this date.
and the rest of it will be,
And if the
All the
brochures
way.
are there after that date, then we recycle.
I'll tell you, and there's, I mean, it would take, I mean, I don't think a pickup truck would haul them all.
Do we need to get a dumpster down there?
I don't know.
Bonfire.
we can put it in the back of the dump truck covered, take it to wherever you want.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
way
Yeah.
it goes really cold, we could burn it in a wood stove.
Okay,
Okay,
I like your thinking.
we'll be back in touch.
All right,
Do you know when you're going down to the Welcome Center? Do you
I'll
know
have
when?
to talk to Bonnie. You want
That's
to
what
go with
I-
us?
Well, I'm thinking maybe I would just tag along, just to see,
That's fine.
because I think we are in need of a couple of desks and stuff here at the courthouse.
Is that conference table something we use in the small room downstairs? I mean,
think
we
that's
decided,
Nice there.
the other table is not functional, is that correct?
well, that other table, I think has to be bolted to the floor and nobody particularly wanted that. Correct me if I'm wrong, because they want to be able to move it around. They didn't want it
I
in the
think that came from the
conference,
extension office that.
right,
correct,
they didn't want it in the community room at all.
Right.
Well, it's our
Because they can't
building.
move around.
It's our building and they're not gonna be here.
Well, I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see not to put it in that community room, that's a large room, right? I can see
Yes.
that used for different things, but
Right.
that smaller room, if there's a conference table, we
That
usually
small
got
room
the.
would- that'd be a
I think
nice
that's what
table
maybe
for
what we
that.
need to look
I
at.
agree with you.
Yeah, let's do that. Once you, I mean,
What's that?
The one down there or the one down here?
no, the one down there, the small one could go into the little room down here.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's why
Okay with
I
that.
probably need to go on tour and.
do you want us to grab that or do you want us to wait till I hear from you?
Wait till you hear from us.
All right. Anything else? Have a good week.
See you later.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move right to you, Lisa.
Mine is short and sweet today because all I need today is a motion to approve the minutes of the August 30th, 2022 board proceedings as written by Auditor Smith and authorized publication in the official newspapers. You got a different day.
Yeah.
A motion and a second to approve the publication of the August 30th minutes. All those in favor? Aye, motion carried.
Motion needed to accept and place on file and authorize the chair's signature on the county recorder's report of fees collected for the month of August 2022 in the amount of $44,049.45.
Motion to approve.
I would second.
A motion and a second to approve the recorder, report on fees collected. All those in favor? Aye. She didn't work as hard this week.
That's,
Oh, my.
that's all that I have for the board
Yeah,
today.
it was a little bit, but I
Yeah.
didn't look it over to see where.
It's that table, it's really not very big.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I just need to go for a tour.
I think
and-
it seats, I think there's 8 chairs that go around it.
Nice chairs.
You know, us in chairs.
But I don't know,
Honestly, though, you know, we've put chairs out in the hallway here. People sit on them
Yeah,
all the time.
they
So
do.
that was a good catch from the hospital.
You know, even this table, I don't know what John's gonna need in that office area, you know, he talked about laying his blueprints and all this
Mhm.
stuff out,
Yeah,
you know, and his whatever, you know,
oh,
maybe,
yeah,
maybe he could use some of that stuff too.
normally you shoot plywood, but
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, if we've got a decent table that you can use and sit around and people can talk and sit in there and have type of meeting for them too, you know,
Mhm.
meeting
Yeah.
place for them, so.
yeah, so we could just go down there.
Yeah.
Well, I will let you know when we're gonna
Okay.
go.
I just
Alright.
think we need to start getting some of that stuff out.
and I know that you've got some discussion today on a work session on the Welcome Center. I guess that's, we've got, I guess, issues with the things inside it and
Okay, Luann, you are up.
Good morning.
You haven't been in that chair for a couple weeks.
I know. My family to keep me hot and so. All right, calendar for this week. 1 o'clock this afternoon is the Miller Meeks Mental Health Roundtable discussion in Clinton. And I have RSVP'd for Jack. I don't know about Mike and Larry if they're going to that. From 4 to 6 this afternoon is a Clinton Community College welcome reception for the new chancellor in Clinton, and that's for Jack.
But both of those events are tomorrow on Wednesday.
Yes, okay, I'm on Wednesday's calendar.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
I skipped over the little Wednesday.
Because I was
part,
thinking.
but- So yeah, Miller meets
I thought
us tomorrow at 1 o'clock and I'm
and.
thinking that's on Wednesday.
But today's
Apparently.
Monday, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so also on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock is a 911 service board meeting for Mike. All right, Thursday, September 8th at 1 PM is the Clinton County and Jackson County Cemetery Commission's joint meeting in DeWitt to talk about how they handle things differently and see if they need to change.
So the Pioneer Cemeteries.
The Pioneer Cemetery Commission is right.
Hmm.
And I don't know if any of you are going to that. Larry had asked me about it, but Joanne Kevin sent out the invitation for that. Friday, September 9th at 10 AM is 7th Judicial District Department of Corrections meeting in Davenport for Larry. Monday, September 12th at 7:30 AM is the Early Childhood Iowa Executive Committee meeting in DeWitt or by Zoom for Jack. At 1 o'clock on Monday is the Mississippi Valley Workforce Area Proposed Performance Levels. That's an MS Teams meeting also for Jack. Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, September 13th at 9 AM. At 4 PM that afternoon is a Macocata River Watershed Management Area Executive Committee meeting by Zoom for Larry. At 5 o'clock is a Mississippi Valley Workforce Executive Committee meeting by Zoom for Jack. And at 7 o'clock is a Board of Health meeting for any of you that want to go to that.
Is that next week or this week?
13th, Tuesday the 13th. That's what I have on my list.
I see that you gave us this morning that she had some changes,
She's coming in to talk to,
the well ordinances and the private wells.
right, Dressler subdivision. Yeah, so, and if you saw the email, she also sent me an email that said there's 3 items the DNR wants dealt with right away. They're gonna be talking about those at the Board of Health meeting. And then they'll have to be on one of our next 2 agendas for the supervisors to approve as well.
Okay.
All right, in terms of business that I have today, there are 2 vacancies. There is a vacancy on the Jackson County Zoning Commission, and there is a vacancy on the Board of Adjustment for zoning. Those 2 need to be advertised again. I think I've advertised them in the past. but Elizabeth had, or Lori had asked me about them, about getting them filled, so, I need permission to advertise them again. And they'll have to be advertised, we won't be able to make an appointment until at least December, because the advertisement has to be out there for at least 3 months before we can make appointments to either of those boards at this point.
If we don't get a woman
We
applicant.
have to have a 3 months notice to allow women to apply. If we do not get any women to apply, then in December, we can appoint a man if we need to. But we have to wait that long, and we need to get the advertisements out, so that's why I'm looking for permission to advertise.
Well, we
those
certainly
two
need to advertise and
vacancies.
move forward with it. My guess is that we're gonna have to put our thinking caps on and see if we can solicit somebody. Because that's normally how that works. You're gonna get somebody to do it. We're gonna have to go out and ask.
Shake the bushes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we've done in the past.
Correct, like I said, these have been advertised in the past, these vacancies would have been advertised a year ago, and we haven't had any response to them.
Well, I
either
would make
way,
a
so-
motion that we do advertise for them anyway for vote for this.
Second.
Motion and a second to advertise the 2 openings on the zoning commission and the zoning board of adjustment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
Is it okay that we did that together?
Mhm. And I will get those sent out, so they'll be in the paper next week.
Yep.
Okay. Also in your package, you'll see a contract for growth services for the care facilities wastewater treatment facility. This is a contract that we sign annually for maintenance on that system. So I'm looking for a motion to approve that contract and have the chair sign it.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the fee and the contract with Growth Service LLC out of Manchester. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
That was all I had for you.
Okay, thank you. Alright. We want to call Elizabeth and tell her if she's ready to come down. We're ready to meet with her, and at this time we'll recess till we're joined by her. We'll reconvene the meeting and we're being joined by Elizabeth Townsend, Jackson County Health Administrator. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thought your letter was great.
Good, thank you. So,
I have a comment about it, I guess.
Well, we don't want to hear it.
So like in the very first line, of course, it says that Iris is currently working on this. I guess a lot of people don't know what Iris is, so let's maybe put in quotations behind that, what Iris really means.
okay,
What is it, Eastern Iowa?
Regional.
So,
You don't know?
Utility services.
would it help too, because we did a frequently asked questions type thing, and we could, that we gave out to people at the meeting the
Yeah.
other night, but we could send that to you, Elizabeth, too.
It's right there,
and-
she's got it.
okay, yeah,
And you can print it and
put it in with
put
the
it in the
letter,
letter too.
okay, sure.
You know, just so, I guess my thought was, just so they know that this organization or the Iris works with small communities with issues like this. And they're for nonprofit, they don't gain anything by this.
Right,
I got the feeling at that one meeting that I went to that they thought you guys were maybe making some kind of profit on this.
Came back from some people we were talking.
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure what the correspondence had been prior to, over the last 3 years or however
I think
long.
they certainly need to be aware of some of these issues, may arise if,
Right, so I mean, what's happened is, Iris is working on getting the easement agreement signed. We've had a handful of individuals approach either myself or one of the supervisors, saying, hey, we wanna keep our private well. So I reached out to those individuals and then they're like, oh, I get to keep my well, so my neighbor wants to keep their well too, and my other neighbor and their neighbor, and so I think that, after talking to Matt, it sounds like we should probably have something in place. A criteria to determine who can keep their well. So I guess based on my professional opinion, I put a list of things together here that would identify, or would be identifiers to make that determination. They'd have to fall on a certain criteria. I did add some things in there like septic inspections at the homeowner's expense. I think that that's something that will benefit them in the long run. Because if we agree and say, yes, you can keep your well, but then 6 months from now, their septic system is failing. You know, that's not gonna go over very well. So I think we need to know that they meet the current code setback distances. And that they have a functioning as designed septic system.
But it's important for them to know that there are certain conditions too,
Right,
that could affect whatever they do.
right, because I mean, essentially, if they don't meet these requirements and the water, city water comes in. The individuals that decided to keep their well, they may not, you know, be able to sell their home at a later date. And that's really where a lot of this has stemmed from. I mean, it's the groundwater contamination concerns. But the lots are small and, you know, their well and their septic, a lot of them are too close together. They would not pass a current time of transfer inspection. So hopefully this letter will clarify that for them and they understand what we're trying to achieve here. Instead of kind of fighting us on, you know, the water hookup and the easement agreements, so.
A lot of what I heard was we've had it for 25 years, it's fine. Well, that doesn't mean it's gonna be fine tomorrow, you know, but or down the road when you go to sell your property, like you said, I mean, what kind of value is, you can't transfer it without the time you transfer, so.
Correct.
I mean, it's gotta be compliant, so.
Right,
Rules and regulations have changed since 30 years ago, so. It's just an understanding issue, I think, mostly, you know, and I got the point that they thought you guys were taking some off the till, you know, and that's not the case. They're working desperately to try to get this to help community.
right,
And
right,
and it's not me, I mean, to me, I hear a lot of this, well, it's not they're a community, it's the whole of it, you know. What's
Mhm.
best for the community, I guess, it's hard to get.
All we're trying to do is protect them.
right,
Mhm.
yeah,
And grant them $100 or $1 million in the process. you know,
Amen,
Which is,
amen.
there's a time frame involved here and it's coming shorter, it's getting shorter. From what I hear, the project needs to be completed by next September.
That's our end date right now.
And
yeah. So
that's not a lot of time for what needs to be done.
it's not, I just think that, like I said, I think they've lost sight of what we're trying to do. The county is trying to help, Iris is trying to help, and if we lose the grant funding, then there's gonna be a lot of future problems with home sales, and I know there's already a handful of individuals that may or may not, you know, that might be considering selling or are not able to because they don't meet that time of transfer.
And I can certainly see the person that has 2 lots or is certainly in compliant. Wants to keep his well, and I agree to that to a point, but as long as they've got the capability of replacing that down in the future, you know.
Mhm.
And there's some up there that are in compliant, I don't have an issue with that, but they have to understand if down the road they want to get on the water supply, it's their cost, it's their baby then, you know.
I did talk to Sarah Davenport last week about this too. With the ones that do keep their wells, we should probably put that in their easement, that they're allowed to keep it. And then the question came up, when it does fail, will they be required to hook up or can they drill again? Another one.
Yeah.
I guess I'd say they'd be required to hook up.
Well, it'd be silly not to, I would think, to spend
Absolutely.
$20.
It would be cheaper to hook up than to drill.
But we still hear the comment of, I don't want city water. Because it doesn't.
Fluoride.
I guess on that side of the story, I can also say that if they're being compliant, why would we not let them drill another?
I think they could drill another well. I think that they would be, responsible for the cost to cap the old well. Normally that, you know, that would be something that would be grant funded, but I think that that should be at their expense.
Do you still intend to, let's say, put a stub, you wanna call it, to the lot line or something, if you're putting it down the easement, this water line down the easement are you gonna put a T in there, so at some point they could hook up reasonably easy, or a valve or
So we
something?
talked about it, but the cost,
Our funder right now says we cannot use their funds to put like a stub out because there's no payment coming back. So they're not seeing a return on their investment of the money they're putting in.
So
I
if they-
understand that.
So if they didn't hook up, they'd have to have the expense of actually cutting the main and putting the,
tapping,
Yeah.
Going out into the roadway.
putting the joint in and, yeah, okay.
and that could vary a lot depending on which side of the road the. main-
Or if the road's got new blacktop on,
Yeah.
which is an issue with some of it, you know, other issues I've heard is the roadway. Who owns the roadway?
And so the expense could actually be more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, like you said, with the fresh blacktop, that's not an easy dig up the road and tap into it.
Especially if we're down the middle.
So I think that they could, should just have the option to do one or the other and it would be at their own expense.
One thing that came up that one person brought to my attention, and I thought we had not mentioned it. In all our letters to him, he says, the people down here gotta understand this is a health issue.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I thought, all we've been talking about is trying to give water to these people and everything, and that we are trying to solve a health issue down there. And so at one point in our future letters that we do stress that it's for health reasons too. that It's not just,
Well, that's certainly what the intent.
yeah. But when we started out, what really initiated, but I noticed that our letters, we don't mention health. You know, that's what we need. That's why we're doing it. So maybe yours too. 'cause
Yeah, and I
as
did
in
try,
your role, that's.
I did try to put a little emphasis on that, you know, the aquifers could essentially be contaminated. You know, if we don't hook up to that water, I can certainly put something more in there, add more emphasis. Or maybe put in something about groundwater contamination, separate, some sort of a handout.
No, the one lady asked, what's the worst case scenario? And I answered by saying that, you know, we lose the grant money and stuff. But the correct answer, I think, thinking back on it, I should have said, well, you can get sick and die. That
Right.
would be the worst case. scenario.
Well,
And
there's
that's what
definitely,
we're trying to avoid.
yeah, and there's the people that need the water that want the water. But the people that, you know, they have a well that's, you know, functioning good and they don't think they need the water. I mean, in all honesty, when I brought up the groundwater contamination or that their neighbors might not have clean water, they don't seem to.
Care.
Yeah.
They're
That's what
thinking
I
it's not
said
gonna
before,
affect me.
you know, when I
Yeah,
hear them talk,
exactly,
it's
yeah.
me or I, it's not really me or I, it's all of us, it is a community, or if they don't care. But it also sounds like that there's a minimal amount of them, but again, there might be more of them pop up once this starts to happen, you know.
Mhm.
So I'm completely, are we looking for a motion to do this letter or something?
Yeah, I'd like to have,
I think she wanted us to look at it and give the approval to do that, so. You know,
Like I said, we're on a time frame. I would certainly make that motion to move forward with it, send the letter out, I guess, just explaining who Iris is and then in there. And that they are nonprofit.
okay, so this would
They're
And
doing-
maybe
With
or
the
even,
their-
handout
Iris is
too.
just help
Pardon?
doing it for health issues.
include the handout, so.
Yep,
when
yep.
you send it to me, okay.
Yeah.
and make a list of the other projects, you know, I mean, we've got like 10 or 12.
Well, and them guys did a nice job at speaking of that at the meeting I was at, is Andover and Petersburg and, you know, there's other small.
Center
communities.
Junction, Andover and Center Junction are the two water systems we have.
Do you want me to add that into the letter itself, or do you want a separate handout of information for that?
I would make it a separate handout.
A separate handout, okay.
Here, we do have that in question number 2.
Oh, it is already, okay.
The
Oh,
one
okay.
we talked about the other day. Because one little person was talking to me too, she's got a well now, and she says, well, my well's just fine, I get it tested, but not through you. I don't know where she goes to get it tested. And she goes, so I'm okay, and I says, well, that's okay for you, but you can still, contamination can come from your neighbors.
right,
I said, you maybe have because she was talking about how her sewer system is good and her water system is good. I said, well, the contamination can come from neighbors that now would make your well bad.
or her septic system could be contaminating the neighbor's water, so.
Yeah. And but she told me, well, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Again, it was like what Mike was saying about, it's just I or me, and she was just by herself. She didn't think that the neighbors could have.
So
something
what
to
is
do
the
with it.
history on those, most of the wells? Are there some sand points there, or are they actually drilled with casing and?
Oh, there's plenty of sand points up there, but they're on the smaller lots that,
Yeah.
I mean, some of these homes up on top, they're, on large lots and they have a compliant sewer system and water and a well, but.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of, just from looking back at, some records, I guess, or some correspondence from the previous, health administration, that I think that there's a lot of, homes down there that are there, they have contaminated water,
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's the majority. And I've been down there, I mean, not a lot, but quite a few homes, I guess, in the last few months I've tested water down there, and I would say definitely the ones that want to keep their wells, I've tested them and they were fine. I think the thing to really consider though is, I think we're also looking at future, so even though people's wells might be testing okay now, they may not be later. So we have had a few wells shocked down there, and just because you have to shock the well doesn't necessarily mean that the groundwater is contaminated. But, you don't know until you go through that process, what that contamination level is. So we're trying to avoid for future, really.
I mean, yeah, it like Mark said, it's a health issue.
Mhm.
Listen, do you have the origins list of wells? Did they ever send you that? They've got like, I think 36 wells on their plans that they show that they've identified with Frank.
I think somebody sent that to
Maybe
me.
Chris Becklin.
Okay, yeah.
Because when we were at the meeting, we were saying, because I think you and I had emailed back and forth, and you said there was 4 that you were taking. And one lady asked, how many people got wells here? I think it was 9, 10 hands went up.
Mhm.
We go, "Oh," we thought there's only 4 that were functions that people were using, only 4 of them. And
Right, yeah, and I know some of them, I know that, I received some phone calls on Friday, and some of those wells that people are wanting to keep, I know that they're contaminated. I know that they're way too close to a septic system on both sides or more than one side, so. Yeah, they want to keep their well, but they're not going to be able to, I mean. Yeah, that's kind of, so I'd like to get this
I
out.
lost track here. Did we second and vote on that?
So your motion was to approve the letter written by Health Administrator Elizabeth Townsend to all property owners in the Dressler/Spruce Creek subdivision as presented.
With minor changes, yeah.
Just to put in the iris.
Yeah, okay, and second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Will these just go out in general mail?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
And it will go to all the property owners, which really isn't true. Because it'll have to go to the owners of the trailers also.
Which we're still trying to get those.
we don't have any of those addresses or names either for the trailer. We just have to send stuff to Pettish. And we talked to them.
But the trailers are gonna have a hookup.
And there's about. he's
20,
got about-
I heard 20 some.
Oh, there's more than that.
Is there?
He's got like one area that's got like 40, and then there's like an upper area that has like another.
So
5,
how
6,
are you
7,
going to handle those trailers that don't pay the bill?
That's what we're trying. I did talk to Pettish about that. He's willing to work with us, but again, we're gonna talk to our attorney and see kind of.
So we
legally.
don't have any issues.
The one recourse we do have is we can shut water off. We can legally shut water off. to
Yeah,
them if
that's
they
true.
don't.
Yeah.
Or like the issues you had before with like Leisure Lake, you
Yeah.
gotta put liens on them.
Yeah.
Because, but this one's, we can shut the water off. So
Yeah,
they're-
because I was trying to avoid that, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And I'm sure you are also.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out if there's something we can tie to that lease agreement that he's got. Again, it's just from a legality standpoint, what we can do, but he's willing to work with us, so. We're
How
willing to
big
see
are
what
the
we can do.
lots that the trailers sit on? They're not,
The size of the trailer.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
and then
Enough
as
to
long as
walk
the mirrors
around
don't
them.
hit, right?
Pretty tight, huh? I was gonna say, maybe there's nothing like they could buy that land, but.
See,
No.
the trailers aren't an issue for us with the easements because they're not on. The easement, Pettish owns that land, so Pettish can sign the easement for that road, so, but they are gonna be an issue when we try to get the users agreement. But our big goal now is to get the easements so we can get USDA's to sign off on, so we can get going, so. So we're okay there, but we talked to Origin too about how to get addresses and things for when we start putting users agreements together. Because
Petty
by
should have a
our,
list of that, well, the post office would have a list of addresses. wouldn't it?
I'm not so sure that all of them have a 911 number either, in that part of it.
Okay.
Guess what they get mailed there.
And I guess I was wondering if
So
the
most of
treasurer's
them are
office
not year
can help.
round.
yeah,
So if you mail them something now, they might not get it till spring.
Well, like I said, like they said, it's a problem. I mean, if you talk to the owner, of course, and I don't know how much access that Dennis has to his occupants there, or what owners or whatever, how much interaction they even interact.
Well,
Well,
how often do the trailers move in and out? I
That's-
guess that would be my
They
other
don't.
question.
I think-
They don't,
But
they're
that's
pretty-
another point. I think he
They're
says
mobile homes.
he sends a lease out about this time of year. Let me get a hold of him.
So I could go
Yeah.
with the lease maybe.
Yeah.
a lot of those trailers don't have wheels.
Okay,
No,
but they
They're
get
there.
sold though.
if they,
But I know that they get sold, because I know
Yeah.
someone that bought one of the trailers that doesn't have wheels, so I know that it got sold. So that would be my question
Yeah.
is, did it
There's
get
a
transferred? I mean, I assume that the treasurer's office knows that, so those trailer taxes are paid. Yeah,
But he would have a list if he's mailing out. lease
Yeah.
agreements with them, so.
So I'll use your list though of everything, all of the,
Correct, and then we'll try and get the rest of them from Dennis on what he owes.
okay. So do you want me to wait for those then? or-
No,
No?
get, because we don't need easements from them, so hopefully we can get the easements back. Like I said, I don't wanna take another day or two to wait for Dennis to get back to
No.
us. Let's get that out.
is there any other meetings planned with owners, or did you have much participation when?
No, and honestly, like, what do you think, Larry? There was maybe only 8 people at the second meeting. The second one really didn't have a lot. So,
How many signed? Quite a few signed though.
because we had quite a few at the first one. We probably had 50, 60 total between the two.
But the thing too, the people, the only addresses we had were the people that were had easements. were The only address we had, and fortunately, and in the letter, we asked them to tell, if you have any neighbors, tell them to come to the meeting or about it. I think that's why we had a couple of people that came down from up on, was it 395th?
I can give you addresses of all the property owners there. Is that what you're asking?
But
I don't
I
have the
think-
trailers, but I do have the property.
what we did
owners.
is, I think, we had gotten all the addresses for the people that needed easements. And we had sent those letters out, and those again were the only ones we had addresses for a second letter. But the word got out, but
Well, we had to have more though, because I got a couple calls and they're like, well, I don't have an easement. And I said, well, you probably didn't need one. So it must have been, we must have had the complete, maybe Origin
Okay.
has a
Yeah.
complete list, because I had at least 2 calls that said, well, I didn't get an easement. And I said, well, you probably didn't need one where you lived. So we probably had all the mailing ones, but we
Okay.
probably don't have the.
we don't have the trailers, I know we don't.
Yeah,
have
But like I said, Dennis can probably get us that pretty easy.
I know there was one gentleman that had an issue with signing that, saying he didn't want no part of that. I mean, it's a private, all them roads are private. Obviously, they're private, like nobody maintains, them. The county don't maintain them, and the city don't maintain them. But who owns them? Is it the original subdivision builder, or is it the landowner?
And I think the more I think about it now, the property owners maintain it, put rock on it, grade it, move the snow.
That's right.
You kind of just took ownership of it by doing that, didn't you? I mean, in court of law, push comes to shove.
But keep in mind when at the corner, okay, and you go straight into Spruce Creek, that road, that now is blacktopped, correct?
395th or?
So it's
not
right by the,
55th?
it's right by the
Railroad
railroad.
track, yeah.
Okay, that road, we had to buy it from the Dressler
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, that's the county, that is a county road.
That's county road
That
to
is-
the
That
maintenance
is,
shed.
so, and we had to
Yeah.
physically pay the Dressler family for that road, so I take the opinion that if we had to pay money for that road that we had already maintained and put improvements in,
Well, that was one of the arguments that we'd heard too, the person who had bought, who it was Muddy Rivers. And they're the ones that are south, they're actually not in Dressler subdivision, how they had to pay to have access to, was it 308th or 304th?
304th, I think.
Street, yeah, the one that runs,
Right.
east and west.
He paid a
And
easement fee to the,
Dresslers,
to,
he said, either.
he paid it to Dressler or he paid it to the seller of the lots?
Rest, because
The original one that, it looks like it was originally bought, Muddy Rivers originally owned that lot, and I think then Schulte's bought it from that, from Muddy Rivers. And then now sold some back to Muddy Rivers.
but I think
But
when
it's,
you look it up, I think Schulte's got the easement from Dressler's at the time. Because they said it wasn't part of the initial Dressler subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Well, yeah, them lots would actually be part of the Wagner subdivision.
Yes. But
Yeah.
yeah, or if they wanted to access onto 304th.
Right.
They had to get these, so I think we even looked at trying to get to find a Dressler heir. To also get an easement, then
Yeah.
to sign off on an easement, but
yeah, and they're on.
Yeah.
Someone local.
there
because we wanted to avoid what we had to do up in Petersburg, where Larry was involved in that one, where we had to get the condemnation for the road, but that was only what, 7 property owners, so it was a little, the time wise, it took forever.
Yeah.
The paperwork and everything was shorter, similar, so, but the time wise, it took us, what, 3.5, 4 months just to get that done, and that's
And I
what I
don't
was
think
afraid
you
of
have
here.
that time right now. I mean, you've been kicking this can for a couple of years already, so.
Absolutely. Okay, Elizabeth,
Okay.
thank you.
Good luck, fellas.
Keep it rolling.
We're halfway there.
Yeah, if we can do anything, let us know, but.
All right, will do. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, it looks like we have scheduled a work session on Welcome Center and one on office space. And a discussion on action on budget. What is,
I have no idea. I didn't put that
I
on.
think that was just on there for when you give us the end of the year report, and I haven't gone through the whole thing
Yeah,
yet. I think it's just on there. We talked about having a
okay,
budget meeting prior to.
I mean, I think it was interesting, some of the things when you look through that final June 30th report.
mhm,
But here we are with a new and things are changing in the current budget that we're in and yeah.
okay, well, if there's nothing else we're gonna take action on, we could adjourn and then we can further discuss the office space and work session.
Further business and make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
The motion and a second to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.